start by saying it's fantastic that that it's almost a commonplace now and widely accepted that a rapid expansion of renewable energy deployment is required in order to reach net zero. And also, obviously, as we have been made acutely aware over the recent weeks and months, it also contributes to security of energy supply, certainly for Europe. I would like to leave you with three thoughts around the wind industry in Europe and its contribution to the path to net zero. The first one is that the growth outlook and the opportunity for investment is staggering. The second is it does, however, meet a supply chain which is severely challenged at the moment and in parts unhealthy. And the third point, therefore, is that in order to achieve the growth that we need to achieve, that is not a piece of cake, as you could say, but actually requires the right framework in terms of policy and regulatory boundary conditions. So let me shed a bit more light on each of these 3 points. The first one about the growth perspectives and the investments required. Let me just share a few numbers with you. At the moment, and all the numbers I'm quoting now are Europe and the UK, at the moment we have around about 230 gigawatts of wind power installed in Europe. We need to get to more than 1,400 gigawatts by 2050. So that's about six-fold until 2050. And for offshore wind in particular, within those numbers, it's about 15-fold that we need to do until 2050. And even if in the shorter time frame, until 2030, it's significantly more than a doubling of where we stand today. And the investments required in that are staggering. We are estimating that until 2030 alone, it's about 1,000 billion euros of investment that are required. Roughly half of that is in the generating assets and balance of plant. The other half is in grid infrastructure. So staggering amounts of investment opportunities, which obviously is very good news. If you just think, well, it's a lot of time, right? Shouldn't be so much of an issue. Let me leave one more number there with you. We need to actually grow the wind capacity every single year more than twice as fast as we have done over the recent years. So every single year, from now until 2050, we need to build about 2 to 2.5 times as much as we have been building last year or the year before. So it's not just a continuation of what we have been doing, it's a massive, massive acceleration. We can do that as an industry, but as I said, at the moment, this is meeting a supply chain which is severely challenged. Why is it severely challenged? On the one hand, the supply chain is faced with massively increased raw material prices, which, by the way, was already the case prior to the Ukraine war, but obviously has been even exacerbated by the Ukraine war. But not only have those prices increased, also the outlook has become a lot more difficult to predict for the supply chain, and of course that causes challenges. Over and beyond that, parts of the supply chain at the moment are not very healthy. They are operating at either razor thin or partially even negative margins at the moment. You will have read some of that probably recently in the press about some of the wind turbine manufacturers. And of course, that is not a sustainable situation, in particular if you think that this supply chain also has to invest into further capacity in order to satisfy all the growth that I outlined before. So what does that mean in terms of the unlocking of the investment and the growth in terms of the barriers that need to be removed. Let me quote a few of the most important things. First one is we need to shorten and simplify permitting. That goes for both onshore wind and offshore wind. We need to shorten the timelines of that, and we need to simplify that. Also, the spatial planning, both onshore and offshore wind, needs to be adapted to these massive growth projections. And of course, there are challenges with regards to co-use of space and other interested users of the space. But also in terms of the market designs and the auction designs around wind power, these need to be adapted such that the investments are being attracted also against, as I said, a situation where the outlook on the actual cost in terms of raw material prices and some of the supply chain cost are uncertain. So some of the good examples are indexed CFDs like we have in the UK. So that's a very positive example because it allows at least a certain degree of predictability for the investors to say, yeah, you know, if these CFDs are indexed with inflation, then I have a certain degree of trust that I can earn back my investments even against a somewhat uncertain investment climate. What also should ideally not be done or capped is negative bidding. We are seeing some markets and auctions where investors are asked to bid negative, i.e., you know, to spend money for the right to develop in the first place. This should be minimized or at least capped. And last not least, what needs to be done is to stimulate the faster build out of grid infrastructure. Grid infrastructure remains a bottleneck in many places around Europe, and if the grid infrastructure isn't there, the generating asset is of no use. So the rapid build out of that is absolutely important. So to wrap it up, the growth projections and the investment opportunities are fantastic. The political and societal support and pull is there. All of that is fantastic, but to achieve it is not a given, and we need to work very hard together, the industry, with policymakers and all involved stakeholders to make it a reality. Thank you very much.